Bad news, I've transmigrated into a book. Good news, I've transmigrated as a scumbag. In BL novels, there's always an ex-boyfriend who tortures the protagonist both physically and mentally. Only in this way can the protagonist meet a kind top who will redeem him. In this novel, the original body was just the most insignificant one among thousands of scumbags. I have to say, it's so exhilarating. Playing a scumbag who ignores moral bottom lines in the early stage and legal bottom lines in the later stage is incredibly exciting. Looking at myself in the mirror with yellow hair and the same face as in the original world, I casually ruffled my hair twice. Handsome people can pull off any hair color. Just as I was sighing, soft footsteps approached from afar. Oliver, I've bought the cigarettes you wanted. A timid voice came from behind me. From this angle, the mirror showed the person at the door clearly. He was wearing a grayish-white short t-shirt and blue jeans with bangs over his eyebrows covering his eyes. The young boy was huddled and his head was down, holding out a pack of cheap cigarettes in his hand. The kind that costs 9 yuan a pack. I turned around and leaned against the porcelain white sink. I coldly ordered him, come here. The submissive young boy was a bit slow to react. It took him a few seconds to understand what I said. He looked up, uttered a confused "ha," and slowly walked closer. When he was an arm's length away from me, I grabbed his collar, forcing him to bend over and look up while my other hand pushed aside the hair on his forehead. Feeling the soft black hair between my fingers, I maliciously tugged it upwards forcefully. Looking down at his fair and gorgeous face, I hooked my lips in satisfaction. Go and have your hair cut short tomorrow. After saying that, I let out a soft laugh. As for now, kneel down. A layer of mist covered those beautiful and charming eyes, full of confusion and helplessness. The system lurking in the corner of my mind became restless. Oliver, it's not okay to start with something X-rated. What are you thinking? I sneered inwardly. Don't worry, I'm not lusting after his body. After slowly replying to the system, Leo was already kneeling on the water-soaked floor at this moment. Unexpectedly, there was no trace of shame or anger on his face, only shyness. His cheeks were flushed. He blinked his eyes and nervously bit his lips. Oliver, what do you want to do? The hair in my palms suddenly felt a bit hot. I tilted my head. This reaction makes me feel like he's having the same dirty thoughts as that stupid system. Leo knelt on the ground with mixed feelings. As soon as he entered the door, he felt something was different. It was different from his original vulgar and low-class temperament. His non-mainstream yellow hair also looked noble. The young man's clothes were a strange combination. Standing in front of the mirror, he looked both strange and good-looking. What should he do? He liked him so much. Every cell in his body is trembling with excitement, longing to be violated and bullied by this person. He made himself kneel down, so close to him. What does he want to do? The more Leo thought about it, the more excited he became. The stinging pain from his scalp became an aphrodisiac for him. Press harder, press even harder. But the next second, that stinging pain disappeared. I released my hand that was grabbing his hair. Leo's collar was tugged out of shape. Looking down from above, I could see everything. He has a good figure and even has abs. After looking, I also released the hand that was holding his collar, snatched the cigarettes from his hand, opened the pack, took out one and put it in my mouth. I mumbled, the lighter is in my pocket. Take it out and light it for me. The original character had such a disgusting persona. He liked to humiliate the protagonist, the one being loved. Hearing this, Leo wanted to reach into my pants pocket. I quickly clamped his wrist and pushed the cigarette to the corner of my mouth with my tongue. I said in a bad tone, what are you doing? The thing is in my clothes pocket. The short-sleeved shirt the original character was wearing had a pocket in the upper left corner near the heart. The protagonist, the one being loved, couldn't take out the thing while kneeling unless he stood up. Or I bent down. Unfortunately, the purpose of my doing this was to tease and embarrass him. I'm not going to bend down. After quite a while, I even got a bit bored waiting. The original owner's nicotine addiction also kicked in. I'm in a foul mood. Just as I was about to show mercy and let the protagonist suffer off this time, the feeling between my legs felt strange. I didn't even need to look down to know what the protagonist sufferer was doing. I stared wide-eyed and said, System, it's okay for the protagonist sufferer to do something inappropriate. While complaining, I pushed Leo away, pinched the cigarette between my trembling fingers, and walked out quickly. I didn't have the slightest thought to care about the protagonist sufferer who was pushed to the ground. Playing the role of a scumbag almost made me lose my moral integrity. Just as I was about to step out of the door with one foot, the system suddenly spoke up in my head. Why did you push him? Oliver, are you crazy? Hearing the system's angry shout, I stopped in my tracks and looked sideways. The shower area and the wash basin area in the bathroom are separated by steps. Leo's head actually hit the nearby step, and now he's curled up in pain, and I can't see his expression clearly. The system continued to shout discontentedly. I'm warning you. Don't forget that the protagonist sufferer hasn't fallen deeply in love with the scumbag yet. Let's just ignore how badly you treated him just now. When the debt collectors come tomorrow, you still have to coax him into selling the house to pay off your debts. Being reminded like this, I changed the direction of my steps. Oh no. I was just having fun and forgot that the scumbag is currently in a stage of tender affection with the protagonist sufferer. That means I can't have so much fun right now. I squatted in front of Leo, opened my mouth, and felt a bit at a loss. I could only turn to the system for help. Brother, how does the scumbag address the protagonist? When the memories were being transferred, I focused on the segments where the scumbag behaved terribly and didn't pay any attention to the previous plot. Baby. These two words were spoken without any emotion. I got goosebumps all over my body. I said disgustedly, don't call me like that. The system got angry. That's how the scumbag calls when trying to coax someone. I pouted and poked Leo lying on the ground. I asked casually in a forced manner, baby, are you okay? I was just joking just now, I said with a smile. Not hearing a reply, I called out a few more times. Baby? Baby? Stop calling. Call an ambulance. Right after the system finished speaking, I heard Leo softly say yes. Then he said yes 2 more times. It sounded very delicate and pleasant. My hand that was hanging in the air froze and slowly retracted. I'm really dying of sadness. Even at this moment, he didn't forget to respond to those baby calls. I half dragged and half carried the weak Leo to the living room sofa and sat beside him. After a careful check, luckily it was just a scratch. After rummaging out the first aid kit, I started applying medicine to his wound. This first aid kit was prepared by the main bottom for the scumbag. Because the scumbag always liked to fight in groups in the alleys and would come back injured from time to time. Leo had a cut on his right temple, a bleeding gash. It wasn't that serious, but it's hard to say about acupoints. I pushed aside his hair, dipped a cotton swab in iodine and applied it. The dark, yellow potion spread on his fair skin. How do you feel? I asked casually. Leo sat obediently on the sofa with the corners of his eyes moist. He turned his head towards me. Ha! Then he said again, Oliver, I'm fine. Leo had a soft and low tone, not the deep and mellow voice of an adult male, but a very pleasant teenage voice. I warned him irritably, don't do such outrageous things next time, or I'll beat you up again. I was referring to what he tried to do to me in the bathroom. God knows what the main bottom was thinking. After hearing what I said, Leo looked at me shyly like a young girl in love for the first time. His red lips parted and closed as he tentatively asked, don't you like it? Then next time I'll use my hand. The voice of the second half of the sentence became softer, and the last word was just a breathy sound. I increased the force of applying the medicine on my hand and pressed the cotton swab on the wound. I said the word get out heartlessly. Not satisfied, I lectured him again. Leo, this kind of thing can only be done after marriage. Stop doing this to me. A cannon fodder scumbag like me is not qualified to touch the body of the protagonist. Even when I go crazy later, it's just an attempted rape, okay? Leo, who had wrinkled his face in pain because of my rough actions, suddenly relaxed his eyebrows and his eyes lit up. He stammered and said in surprise, You want to marry me? Speechless. It's really hard to communicate with a love-struck person. The flickering incandescent lamp in the old house made me squint my eyes, and I got a little annoyed. While continuing what I was doing with my hands, I asked the system reluctantly, can I slap him and then call him baby to comfort him? The system replied coldly, no. Here, Leo didn't know what he was imagining and threw himself into my arms. I was so scared that my hand holding the medicine trembled. He rubbed his head against my neck. This guy is over 1.8 meters tall. I felt offended. Due to malnutrition since childhood, the original owner was just like me before, only barely reaching 1.77 meters. Leo, who was buried in my neck, asked out of the blue, do you want to marry me because of guilt? My mind went blank and I didn't have time to say a word. Then he answered his own question, it's okay. I'm willing. He's crazy. System, slap him. I can't stand it anymore. In the end, out of guilt for pushing him, I let him hug me. Anyway, he's an injured person. After hugging for a while, Leo finally let go of my neck, looking satisfied. His nose was rubbed red and he looked extremely content, just like a goblin that had sucked in essence. "You smell so good." The way he called me husband was so alluring. My heart skipped a beat. Seeing that he wanted to get closer again, I simply raised my hand and pressed the base of my thumb against his chin, and my upper body involuntarily leaned back. Does this protagonist bottom have skin hunger syndrome? Leo, who was prevented from getting close, immediately showed a wronged look. I raised my eyebrows and remained unmoved. I asked mockingly, "Do you really want to marry me?" "Yes. Yes." Leo struggled and nodded on my hand. I sneered and said lazily, "But you're an orphan. You're not worthy of me at all. Although I don't have a betrothal gift, you can't be without a dowry." Seeing that he was about to speak, I moved my hand on his chin up a bit to cover his mouth. Then I continued shamelessly, "How about this? If you sell your house to pay off my debts, I'll consider marrying you. What do you think?" I curled up the corners of my mouth. These words were all for tomorrow's plot. Just when I thought the protagonist show needed to think about it for a night, he suddenly stuck out his scarlet and moist tongue and licked my hand. I quickly withdrew my hand and the smile on my lips instantly froze. Leo smiled and agreed, "Okay." Looking at this hateful smile, the residual wet marks on my skin became burning hot. I slapped his face out of anger, and the crisp sound was particularly prominent in the silent environment. After returning Leo's saliva to him, I glared at him angrily. "You're smart." Then I quickly got off the sofa and sat on the low table. I'm really afraid of this protagonist show. Thinking of that sticky and disgusting feeling, I deliberately avoided looking at him. After a while, something tugged at the corner of my clothes and shook it. I heard him say, "Is it enough, hubby? Otherwise, I'll sell my car too." A car? Does the protagonist show have a car? I asked the system curiously and didn't reply to Leo right away. "I don't think so." The system explained what he's talking about should be an electric bike. After getting the information, I stood up and refused. "No need." Then he contemptuously and disdainfully complained, "How much is your lousy bike worth?" While he was stunned, I walked straight outside. "Husband, where are you going?" Leo anxiously called out to me. I stood at the door, slammed it shut hard, and raised my voice. "Annoying. Every day, what are you asking about? Clean up the things at home by yourself." Leo, who was left alone in the house, happily pursed his lips. Home? His husband actually said this was their home. He also called him baby and said he wanted to marry him. Leo thought it was really worth it to deliberately bump into the stairs like this. He decided not to tell Oliver his identity. His intuition told him that only in this way could he get more attention and more love from Oliver. The beautiful and delicate young man's face was full of infatuation. His smile gradually widened, and then he covered his face with both hands, fearing that others would see his loss of composure. What should I do? After getting in close contact with my husband just now, I like him even more. So cute. Late at night, I squatted in the corner of the mahjong parlor with a straw in my mouth, chatting with the system off and on. Not to mention, how did the protagonist, the one who was loved, take a fancy to the original owner? The original owner was good for nothing except for this passable face. Moreover, even if he took a fancy to him, he was so love-struck. He didn't take a fancy to him. Otherwise, what's your chance? The system replied in a matter-of-fact manner. I straightened up abruptly. What the hell? She didn't take a fancy to him. Do you want her to sell her house to pay off? To pay off the original owner's debt? I was shocked. Are you crazy? Just asking. Anyway, he agreed, didn't he? The mechanical voice sounded quite guilty. I ground the straw in my mouth with my gums. I want to punch you. The system fell silent. One of the main reasons the original owner pursued the protagonist was that she took a fancy to his house. After paying off the debt, the next step was to dump him. Seeing the system pretending to be offline, I didn't bother to care. Without it, I could do as I pleased. Around 3 or 4 o'clock, I walked out of the mahjong parlor. I drank half of the beer I bought and poured the other half on myself. I casually threw the straw into the trash can, leaned against the entrance of the mahjong parlor, and took out my phone to send a message to Leo. Come pick me up at the mahjong parlor. As soon as the message was sent, he popped up from around the corner as if he had teleported. There wasn't even a streetlight in the long, narrow, pitch-black alley. Leo walked towards me quickly, looking like a ghost floating over. Why did I just want to hide inside the house? He came to my side, supported me, put his arm around my waist, and leaned in to sniff. Husband, why did you drink? Did you lose at cards? Through that thin layer of fabric, the slightly cool temperature of Leo's fingertips was transmitted. The fairly bright light inside the house also shone on his face. Leo had his hair cut. Judging from the roughness of the hair ends, he probably cut it himself with scissors. However, it wasn't too bad. I stared blankly and laughed to myself. It was hard for his face to look bad. Probably drunk, I was a bit captivated by his good looks. I shook my head. Shut up and don't ask. Mind your own business about my affairs. After thinking about it, I kicked him again, probably hitting Leo's calf. Having learned from the previous experience, I didn't dare to use much force this time. Leo let out a pained grunt. He turned his head and deliberately brushed his lips against my earlobe. His warm breath exhaled. Husband, do it when we get home. My pupils trembled and a cool and numb sensation gathered from my limbs to the top of my head. My face also felt a bit hot. Fine. He is seducing me. What's worse, I'm having a reaction. I was so embarrassed that I didn't know what to do with my hands and feet. Who would have thought that the original owner's body would react so easily? It's just a kiss on the ear. Fortunately, there were few people on the road at this time. Only the mahjong parlor was bustling. Otherwise, it's unimaginable how embarrassing it would be to walk back with a flag up. Afraid that Leo would notice, I pretended to be calm and pushed him away. I made an excuse and said awkwardly, stop being so touchy-feely. You may not care about your reputation, but I do. What would it look like if my brothers saw this? As I was speaking, I looked up and met Leo's burning gaze. My words faltered for a moment. Leo told me with his eyes that he had already noticed. Right, who asked me to wear gray pants? It's really obvious. Since it's come to this, I'm too lazy to hide it. I said angrily, what are you looking at? Walk in front of me and block it for me. I grabbed his wrist and made him stand in front of me while I pushed him from behind. Hurry up, I said as I pushed him. Leo didn't walk fast. He would look back at me every few steps. I always knew he was taller than me. But when I really stood behind him, the height difference was especially obvious. Only the protagonist, who is over 1.9 meters tall, can handle him. We walked like this all the way and the physical reaction subsided. When we got back to the original owner's house and Leo turned on the light, I saw a table of cold food. The disappeared system immediately popped up upon smelling the scent. Great opportunity. Get angry quickly. The original host ate outside by himself. Seeing the protagonist bottom wasting money, he must be annoyed. My task is probably to find opportunities to lash out at the protagonist bottom at any time. Without the system's reminder, I also knew that my chance had come. Under Leo's somewhat expectant gaze, I slowly walked to the dining table, scanned it with my eyes, and then sat down. I leaned back on the chair and looked up at Leo. Suddenly, I interrogated him, who told you to cook? After hearing this, Leo froze against the wall, seemingly not understanding the meaning of my words. He anxiously mumbled with his mouth, and a look of panic gradually appeared in his eyes. I sneered and glanced at the shabby kitchen. You got all these things from the fridge, right? Leo. I called out to him, and the words from my mouth were like poisoned ice shards. Taking things without asking is stealing. I didn't expect you to have the potential to be a thief. These words were full of strong sarcasm. An ordinary person would definitely not be able to stand being misunderstood and humiliated like this. But the protagonist bottom was obviously not an ordinary person. He kept silent and even breathed lightly. Somehow, the panic in his eyes had completely disappeared. What replaced it was guilt? I was stunned. It was really guilt. Since transmigrating into the book, I've never been able to guess the protagonist bottom's thoughts correctly even once. Thinking about it, I clicked my tongue in annoyance. What are you pretending to be mute for? After the words fell, Leo moved his dark pupils and said sincerely and seriously, I think what my husband said is right. Then he lowered his head stupidly, looked at his toes, and said in a muffled voice, I'm reflecting. Suddenly, 3 words flashed through my mind. He loves extremely. I was both angry and amused. The protagonist's endurance is really something. Fortunately, after I pay off the debt tomorrow, I can get rid of him. With his obsequious behavior, if I just delay a little time, he'll end up in my bed sooner or later. By then, my chastity will be at stake. Then reflect on your own properly. I decided to just let things go as they are. After leaving this sentence, I quickly went to the bathroom. I really can't stand the smell of alcohol on me. Before leaving, I didn't forget to turn back and order, Leo, lean against the wall and reflect for 3 minutes, then go and get me some change of clothes. I'll make full use of him. As the night deepened, the empty living room became cold. Oliver went back to his room to sleep right after using Leo. When he left, he deliberately turned off the living room light, leaving Leo alone, confused and leaning against the wall between the bathroom and the bedroom. The bright moonlight shone in through the window and fell on the tiled floor. Oliver asked Leo to reflect for 3 minutes just now, but in fact, he only reflected for 1 minute. Oliver scolded him. Normally, one should feel sad and angry. But in fact, Oliver felt lucky. Lucky that the other person didn't eat the meal he cooked. It was his first time cooking, and the result was terrible. He didn't intend for Oliver to eat it in the first place. This brief thought passed very quickly, perhaps taking less than a minute. For the rest of the time, he stared at the hazy figure behind the frosted glass of the bathroom like a pervert. Leo looked towards Oliver's closed door by the moonlight. He walked over and pressed his ear against the door. He could hear nothing but the pounding of his own heart in his chest. He wondered why Oliver didn't have sex with him at night. Was it because his haircut didn't look good? Maybe so. Leo felt a bit inferior. He really wanted to go in and lie with Oliver even if they didn't have sex. He wanted to touch him, but he thought he looked ugly now and would be disliked. Leo leaned against the door sideways, constantly muttering the words Oliver and husband. His soft whispers could be ignored even in the silent space. The next day, I was woken up by the knocking on the door from debt collectors. At first, their voices were quite loud, but they fell silent as soon as Leo showed up. By the time I fully woke up, the matter had been resolved. Leo knocked on my door and asked, "Husband, are you up?" No matter how many times I heard this husband, it still made me uncomfortable. I shuffled over in my slippers to open the door and asked hoarsely and impatiently, "What do you want?" And also, I gave Leo wearing an apron a meaningful look and felt a bit ashamed. Don't call me husband in such a clingy tone. It's really easy for a normal, freshly woken up adult male to get aroused. Leo's earlobes turned red. He opened his lips slightly in surprise and shifted his gaze downward. He tried hard to keep a straight face and stopped speaking in a deliberately affected voice. "Okay, husband." I rubbed my arms and felt much better. Leo was quite refreshing when he was normal. Thinking of what I was going to say later, I closed the slightly open door a bit, only showing half of my face in front of Leo. "Was it a debt collector just now?" I asked. "Yes. I've already paid off the debt." I breathed a sigh of relief. There were only a few key points in the scumbag's plot, and paying off the debt was the most important one. After all, I still had to live in this world in the identity of a scumbag. I had offended so many people in the original world. It was better not to go back. However, this plot was incredibly absurd. How could someone ask someone to sell their house to pay off the debt and then drive them away right away? It was as if they were afraid that the other person wouldn't know they were being deceived. But there was no way. The system demanded it. I remembered asking it last night while stroking my chin what to do if the protagonist refused to leave no matter what. It didn't make things difficult. It just said, "Just get the person out of this house." After hearing this, I came up with a plan. I came back to my senses and tightened my hand on the doorknob. It was time to start lying. "Leo," I softened my voice as much as possible. Leo stood up straight, listening attentively, like a rabbit pricking up its ears. Seeing this, I continued, "You can pack your luggage and leave later." He seemed not to have heard clearly, pulling at the corner of his mouth and asking incredulously, "What did you say?" As he spoke, he couldn't hold back his excitement and stepped forward. In an instant, his eyebrows and eyes were filled with gloom. Fortunately, I was well prepared. Leo was blocked outside the door and couldn't break in. I explained slowly, "Well, it's a custom in my hometown that we can't see each other before getting married, so you should find another place to stay first." I straightened my expression and said, "Baby, this means I want to marry you." After saying that, I hid my head behind the door and scratched the tip of my nose guiltily. What a fake excuse. Only a fool would believe it. If Leo was stubborn, I could only implement Plan B, beat him up and throw him out. But Leo believed it. He excitedly paced in circles on the spot and kept muttering, "How long do I have to wait, hubby? Actually, the wedding doesn't have to be too grand. As long as the two of us are there. Of course, it's not that I don't care. If you want to..." "Stop." I quickly interrupted him and answered his first question. 1 month. It'll take 1 month. I remembered that he and the main character, the love interest, got to know each other and had a whirlwind romance within a month. Leo frowned in confusion. Does it have to take so long? Under my determined gaze, he finally reluctantly agreed. All right then. Before leaving, he still reluctantly reminded me, Hubby, remember to have breakfast. The food is in the kitchen. He walked out of the door empty-handed. Now it was my turn to be stunned. Why didn't he need to pack his things? I walked out of the room and looked around. I didn't look carefully yesterday. Only now do I realize that this house actually has only one bedroom. Didn't it say that the main character, the bottom, is living with the scumbag? The main character, the bottom, sleeps on the sofa. I'm speechless. I really want to complain. This scumbag is really heartless. Leo never thought that he would have a flash marriage one day. Has he known Oliver for 24 hours? How could he have fallen in love? Is it love at first sight? He thinks so. His heart is now sizzling. He's so happy that he's about to die. Boss? Why are you smiling? The assistant sitting in the passenger seat was confused. Why did his boss seem like a fool after coming back from the inspection? His hair was cut, and his collar was one size wider, so his collarbone could be easily exposed. Leo felt the gaze on his neck and nervously pulled up his collar. He glared at the assistant and said, What are you looking at? I'm a married man. My spouse will get jealous. The 32-year-old assistant thought. When did you get married? As far as he remembered, wasn't the boss only a junior in college? I piously placed a smartphone on the table. Several hours passed and the call from the original owner's good big brother inviting him for his birthday hadn't come yet. The system has been as silent as if it were dead for the past half-month. In the plot, the original owner could meet the main character, the top, and the main character, the bottom, in the bar because the original owner's big brother was having a birthday celebration in the bar. At the request of his big brother, the original owner even specially wore a suit. As a result, he happened to see the protagonist bottom in the bar who had changed greatly after leaving him. The original owner suddenly woke up and went crazy with jealousy. In fact, it was just infatuation at first sight. At this time, with the help of the protagonist top, the protagonist bottom had already understood all the lies of his scumbag ex-boyfriend and decided to cut off all ties with his ex-boyfriend forever. However, if the call never comes, how can I continue to play this game? Forget it. I gritted my teeth. At worst, I'll visit all the nearby bars in the next few days. It's just that the original owner didn't have a suit, so I have to buy one now. I held back my excited desire to have fun and rushed to the nearby mall to buy a cheap black suit at random. After putting it on and looking at myself in the full-length mirror, if my hair weren't yellow, people on the street would think I was going to a funeral. Moreover, it's quite inappropriate to dress like this when going to a bar. I look more like a male model than a male model. After visiting several bars, I didn't see the protagonist top and bottom, but I was taken advantage of a lot. True to the prediction, when I went to the restroom because of urgent need to pee, I was really stopped by someone who mistook me for a male model. Leo sent someone to keep an eye on Oliver while he was preparing everything for the wedding. After a busy day, Leo took the folder handed over by his assistant. Inside were the records of Oliver's daily life and photos. These were the only things that could console him after he separated from Oliver. The assistant who had seen the photos in advance silently took a few steps back. Leo opened the folder with a smile. What came into view was a photo of Oliver wearing a well-ironed black suit and swimming in the dance floor with a bright smile on his face. There was more than one photo. Judging from the background decoration of the bars, his dear husband had visited at least 5 or 6 bars. Leo's face immediately fell. Seeing the scene, although the assistant didn't want to admit it, as a 32-year-old virgin, he did feel a bit gleeful. He lowered his head and couldn't help thinking that the boss's partner was really promiscuous. After a while, the assistant's gossipy thoughts welled up. He surreptitiously looked up. Somehow, the boss had changed his posture and he could only see a hunched back. The folder was spread out on the office desk. The assistant squinted his eyes to see more clearly. The photos clipped with a paperclip were gone and there were a few traces of tears. With his back turned, Leo was clutching the photos tightly in his hand and shedding tears. Although he was very sad, Leo thought that his husband looked so handsome in a suit and he liked him even more. Brother, although I'm dressed like this, I'm really not a male model. I shrugged and explained helplessly. I almost couldn't maintain the polite smile on my face. I really wanted to punch this drunkard who was preventing me from going to the toilet. I had an urgent need to pee. Really urgent. If it weren't for this drunkard being burly and obviously a trained person, how could I have been stalemated with him at the toilet door for 15 minutes? This stupid oaf with simple mind and well-developed limbs just kept shaking his head and saying he didn't believe it. Just when I thought I was going to pee my pants tonight, the savior came. Yes, Leo came. I spotted him hesitantly hiding around the corner and not daring to come forward. I was so excited that I almost couldn't hold it in my bladder. His coming meant that the leading male protagonist had also come. In the plot, the leading male protagonist was 1.92 meters tall and had extremely high combat power. It's more than enough to deal with such a drunkard. I raised my hand and waved it vigorously for fear that he wouldn't see me. Leo, over here. Come quickly. After I called him over, he immediately ran over with quick steps, looking at me eagerly. Husband, it's been a long time. I miss you so much. He said coquettishly, gave the drunkard a hostile look out of the corner of his eye and then held my other hand that wasn't being grabbed. He rubbed his cheek affectionately against my shoulder and said, "But husband, won't my coming here disturb you?" I calmly stared at the corner all the time, expecting another person to come out from there. I didn't have the slightest intention to ponder over what this whining Leo said. I replied to him indifferently, "What do you mean by disturbing or not? Don't talk nonsense." All the conversations were clearly audible in the empty corridor. The drunkard immediately sobered up, looking as if he'd been struck by lightning. "You have a boyfriend and still come out to work as a male model?" After saying that, he immediately let go of my hand. Interrupted like this, I withdrew my gaze. Well, now there's no need for the protagonist top to step in. Having regained my freedom, I didn't care about the protagonist top who hadn't appeared yet. I shook off Leo and rushed into the toilet. When nature calls, nothing else matters. When I came out after relieving myself, the originally deserted corridor became even more desolate. The drunkard had already left. I don't know what Leo did. I took out a tissue from my pocket to dry my wet hands and asked, "Why are you the only one here?" What I really wanted to ask was where the protagonist top who came with him had gone. But this question can't be asked directly. Leo ignored the question, wrapped his arms around my neck, and hung limply on me. The scalding heat came from his body. "Oliver, he bullied me just now." He whined and complained. I couldn't see where he was bullied at all. I pulled him off me. "Leo, speak properly. Don't hug and rub against me all the time. What if I have a reaction again and the protagonist alpha sees it?" After finally keeping a polite distance from him, I could see the abnormal blush on his face clearly. The whole area of blush from his cheeks to the corners of his eyes. No way, is his constitution so poor? Didn't he just run dozens of meters? Under my puzzled gaze, Leo pulled my hand and pressed it against his face. His eyes were curved, looking stupid. The mechanical voice mixed with the drunk ramblings of the young man sounded together. "Husband, I've been drugged." "Oliver, you've entered the wrong book." Before I could react, a burning kiss fell on me irresistibly. After the mechanical voice said, "Not suitable for children," it reminded me, "Oliver, you're in a body transmigration. Pay more attention. I was stunned and furious. "No way, are you crazy? Why are you telling me this now?" To make up for it, I, on behalf of the main system, will give you several famous tools. Let me secretly tell you that Leo has a masochistic tendency. I wish you a happy life. You're welcome. The night is very long. After Leo finished crying, he still came to the bar uneasily. He hid in the dark and glared fiercely at the person holding his husband's hand. Unexpectedly, Oliver actually saw him and called him over. He originally didn't want to break the promise of not seeing each other for a month, but now it wasn't him who broke it, so they could meet. As a matter of fact, even when the legal partner had come, that person still didn't let go. How shameless. Are mistresses nowadays so self-assured? Leo was so angry that he gritted his teeth. He must teach that person a lesson. You have a partner but still come out to work as a male model? Leo was mentally scolding the other person. Suddenly hearing this sentence, after regaining his senses, the mistress had let go and Oliver had run into the restroom. Only he and this rival in love were left looking at each other. Without Oliver around, Leo didn't pretend to be weak anymore. He scolded the rival in love mercilessly. After listening expressionlessly, the rival in love looked at him disdainfully and complained, "Love, struck fool, crazy." After scolding, he left. Leo didn't care at all. He thought that person was just jealous. When Oliver came out later, he would shift the blame and say that he had been bullied. As long as he could finally get his wife in his arms, what did it matter if he suffered some verbal grievances in the process? A real man only shows in bed. Extra story. As soon as Leo came of age, his parents at home asked him to manage the company's affairs. By his sophomore and junior years in college, he was already a mature boss. A new development project is planned for the land in the west of the city. When Leo went to inspect the local environment in person, he was robbed by a group of hooligans. He didn't resist and was obediently robbed of everything. Those people didn't want to let him go and attempted to gain more benefits, so he became a hostage. Leo was asked to go back with one of the hooligans. He agreed. Of course, his purpose was to catch them all with the least number of casualties. If there was a direct conflict with them outnumbering him, he would inevitably get hurt. He's been afraid of pain since childhood, so it wasn't worth it. The young hooligan had dyed yellow hair and was quite stupid. As soon as he entered the door, he got a craving for a cigarette and asked him to go buy cigarettes for him. The convenience store was just downstairs. There were many of his accomplices wandering on the street, so they weren't afraid he would run away. When he went upstairs after buying the things, there was a mobile phone on the living room table, but the hooligan was nowhere to be seen. He was probably in the room or the bathroom. Leo picked up the phone and immediately called the police. He spoke quite loudly on the phone, but he wasn't worried. He could handle a scrawny hooligan on his own and get away unscathed. After the call ended, the hooligan still didn't appear. Leo held the cigarettes in one hand and curiously walked into the half-open bathroom. He had an inexplicable intuition that the person was inside. Moreover, something seemed to be luring him to step inside.